This week's feature presentation is NR10. I'm going to describe it by the log line because I don't know how to describe this movie. It's about a man named Gunter who was abandoned in the woods, lived in foster homes, and he seems to be well adjusted and is just living his life. Till one day he is walking across a bridge and a man comes up to him, whispers something indecipherable in his ear, and he starts having visions. Gunter does, and it totally changes his life. So NR10, which was a Fantastic Fest like presents thing after the festival was actually over. This movie is one of those movies that we've seen this year, just added to the pile of the first half is one thing, the second half is something entirely different. Um, I think that this movie, the first, takes about an hour before it actually gets to the
Totally.
yeah, it's a while before it gets to this whole mystery of the past thing. But I thought the first hour was actually really cool. It was like this Hitchcockian thriller almost. I was really enjoying it.
So I'll agree with you. I was on board for the first hour of adultery and fucking with each other's heads. Like I thought this movie was going in a completely different, well, what it was going in a completely different direction. And I really did enjoy that first hour.
Yeah,
I
and
did too.
I'm sorry, I was just gonna say spoiler warning. Like, we are gonna talk about some stuff that's in this movie, and this movie has lots going on in it. So we will not ruin anyone's enjoyment. We will definitely not ruin like the big twist for this movie. But go ahead, Regina.
I really like the beginning with the use of like it had a use of characters in a play, like an acting troupe. I thought it was really cool. It reminded me of a Shakespeare play. Like it's like they always have like an acting troupe hanging out somewhere in the background, like a play within the play all the time. So I was interested in that aspect of it. And I really like all the like the subterfuge and like all the lies and the secrets. And I mean, it wasn't anything dramatic. It was just kind of like your everyday run of the mill kind of lying about stuff. It wasn't, for what the twist we get, it's pretty like I don't understand how we got from one section of the movie to the other, but I did really enjoy the first half of it. I was laughing though when you were saying that Gunter grows up to be kind of well adjusted. He's so well adjusted that like nothing phases him
Yeah,
ever.
he's like super calm. Like, daughter turns out to be missing a major organ. That's cool. Like,
Shit.
yeah, he's sleeping with the director's wife, and that gets like told to the world. That's all right.
Fuck
Shit
it.
happens.
I still want, where are my lines, man?
Yeah, exactly. Don't take my lines away from me.
Yeah.
Don't give him to that dude.
That's where he draws the line.
Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah, that's where he shows the most emotion. And even, and we'll get to the twist right now, but even when they tell him like, okay, here's what's going on, like, I would expect it to be like this crazy outburst of like, you're crazy. I don't believe it. How can it be? Blah blah blah. He's just like, okay,
Okay, going with it. Totally. This
yeah.
must be real.
What's the next step? But before we get to that, like the first hours, there is a problem in that there's a whole lot of characters, and almost everybody does have some sort of subplot going on. But then it all ties back to Gunter, which I thought was really well done.
Yeah.
And there was all these betrayals, and this is actually in the trailer. Like, people are getting their feet nailed to stages, and it's pretty wild what's going on. Like, they did a really good job of putting together, like, these people have super mundane lives. Like, I mean, they just get in a car, go to the auditions, and go home, sleep with your mistress, and that's it. Like, I mean, by clockwork, super boring. And then when an element of something different is introduced, this Gunter's extramarital affairs, none of them know how, all of them overreact. No one knows how to handle it, and I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, I thought everybody acted so weird that like it would go from moments of like, oh, like these people are behaving in a way that like, yeah, that's how people are, to totally not so. And so like, yeah, it was like you said, Hitchcockian. It's kind of got this like juxtaposition of like what you're seeing about who's lying and how they're lying about it and what they're saying to do. And yeah, that whole spider web of stuff which ultimately is totally pointless, is really pretty cool. And I really wish it had done something with that. And this movie maybe my most of the year. And like you said, Pat, we've seen a few of these this year where it's just like total shift. Let's like this one was the hardest left turn and the most disappointing, I think, for me.
It definitely it's the most shocking twist, like easily. And the fact that, like you said, like they spent an hour of this film like building these characters and saying, where I really thought it was going to be like something to do with these three characters and decisions that have been made. And I thought the twist would be somewhere in there. And then it turns out that none of that means anything in the grand scheme of things. Like it was,
Well,
no, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was just say there's one really baffling thing that happens too, because we know that there are some other powers at work revolving around Gunter's life, and they do make one weird decision, a pretty big move that has nothing to do with anything. Had they not messed around with I'll just say without anything, there is a person who's sick, they
Yeah.
decide to intervene. It does nothing to anything. It really doesn't, except it's one small thing, and I think it could have been done a different way. It didn't need to be that extreme, I guess. And it was, but just a weird thing that happened. It's a weird thing that happened. And if I think about it hard enough, I'm like, okay, I can see how this worked, how it needed to be done, but it didn't need to be done. So it kind of throws off like a little bit of a new tone is introduced to the film at that point when that happens.
Yeah, I would have loved to have seen why that needed to be done. Had the movie gone in a different direction.
Yeah, like there's no you can make an argument there's no closure for the entire movie at all. But you get
Oh.
absolutely you there's no way you can even pretend that there's any sort of closure to the first half of the movie at all.
Yeah, there's almost no correlation with anything that happens, and that's what makes it so difficult, because it's almost like this is the last part, the last third, last act is like a joke. It's like it's a joke, and there's like the real end of the movie out there somewhere.
Yeah,
Jokes on us.
yeah, really the joke ends up being on anyone who's watched, because you get this first half that's like, I mean, really interesting with everything that they're doing. Like the characters are really cool. I think one of the things and Blake, you had mentioned the hard left turn, and it's it's a shocker. But one thing this movie does better than any movie that we've seen that's like it is Gunter is he's not a background character per se, but he's just a part of a larger cast. And over the course of the almost 2 hours, it's like an hour 40, like the movie draws him to the forefront, but it doesn't, as the audience, what the movie, eventually he is going to be the main character. But the actual movie, they do a really good job of slowly bringing him into the front, and instead of just like, he's a background character the first hour, all of a sudden he's the guy you're following, which we've seen in other movies. I thought that was really well done. Now, the actual twist, which we'll get to right now, when Regina and I were watching it, like at first, I honestly didn't get it at first, because it didn't make sense to me, like at all. It has no connective tissue to the first part of the movie, so it made no sense to me. And then as things were going along, then I mean, it's pretty cut and dry as to what's happening. This is one of those things where it's like, I don't know how I feel about it, and I've had about a week to think about it now.
They literally take a moment in the movie to make a phone call. It's like he makes a phone call to the first part of the movie, and he goes, "Hey, first part of the movie, I want this to continue," and the movie goes, "Nope, it's over," and it hangs up on him. And a whole new movie begins. That is, like I said, it's so bewildering, I guess is the word. Out there, and it's also very pointed at the Catholic Church, and it is literally Alex van Warderdam. I think it was literally just a shot to take. Like he was like, fuck it, I'm just gonna take this shot at the Catholic Church. Fuck you. And it has, again, that almost has nothing to do with what's actually transpiring. It's literally bewildering. Like I said, I've never been more just like, what the fuck, and like also off put by. It was a kind of insulting, to be quite honest.
It kind of is because so I think after having some time to think about it, like it seems like the twist is kind of one of those, let's just do this because it'll be really weird.
Because what?
Yeah, exactly. And then yeah, like someone's like, oh yeah, when we do it, also this is what we'll say about the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
And so it's like, yeah, no one will see that coming. And they're right, because
right.
it makes absolutely no sense with the rest of the movie, aside from the fact that there are some priests are like puppet masters in the first
Sure.
I mean, like you get that, and that's about it. And what the first half does is it's like, you got all these characters and they're all involved in this subterfuge and there's people recording things and you don't know who to trust and no one's a good person. And the second half, yeah, the story becomes much more focused because there's only 2 or 3 characters, but like it just makes no sense. It's not fun anymore.
That ending there, it does do this thing where it's like, haha, let's I don't know, it feels like a prankster edgelord made the movie at the end.
Exactly.
Someone took over at the end and was just like, you know what, I'm gonna just play a prank here. And maybe the poor director's probably like, oh my gosh, now that's on Netflix, they're like, what happened to my movie? Someone else took over and finished it. 'Cause it really doesn't make any sense. It really doesn't.
It might as well have ended with like a scene from the Mighty Boosh. Like just insert random scene from Mighty Boosh and end film. Like
the movie, like the twist and everything, and the literal last scene, it comes out of nowhere. Like the movie does do a good job of surprising you.
yes.
But it's just the reason it does it is because it's just so out there and over the top. It's and then they do these things in the second half where like they introduce a few plot threads that are potentially interesting depending on where they go, and it would only be interesting to that part of the movie.
Right.
But they do nothing with them whatsoever, and that's disappointing about it.
I can't find one thing about the end of this movie that I find enjoyable or that anybody should try to replicate in the future.
I did find, well, I can't say it without, there were some visuals at the end that I found really amusing. I'm not sure if they were supposed to be amusing, but they made me laugh. So,
yeah, like the literal last scene.
yeah.
It is pretty funny. Like I don't think it's supposed to be, or I don't know. I don't know what I don't know what the intention was, but it was funny for for what it's worth. So NR10, Blake, I'll start with you. This is actually it's just come to via video on demand and digital. C or no C?
God damn it, NR10. You had such a good thing going. No, I can't recommend this movie. No, if it sounds interesting to you and you want to watch it as a gag because of what we've said here tonight, go right ahead. But don't blame me if you're pissed.
Regina, C or no C, NR10.
Okay. I've actually been telling people to see it just because I want to talk to people about it. Because I can't say, oh, I saw this movie and what's it about? I can't tell you. So like, I just want people to see it for that purpose. I can talk to them about it, but no, really don't see it because at the end of the day, their little twist kind of makes it a waste of time. I think you've sat through someone's nonsense.
It's been a while since I've downvoted both movies on this show, but yeah, there's really no point to watch this movie.